Hi and welcome to this second part of the interview with the Underworld Overlord development team. My name is Sebastian and this channel is called Daydream District, bringing you the latest and greatest of Daydream VR. So if this is your first time here and you would like to stay up to date about anything Daydream VR, consider to subscribe. In last week's first part of the interview, you learned about the game itself, Underworld Overlord. Now in this second part of the video, you will learn about what it takes to make a video game. And you will learn about the backgrounds of the video game industry itself. And what is very interesting, if you are interested in getting into the video game industry, in the very end, you will learn how to get into the video game industry yourself. So it's definitely worth it to stay and watch this until the very end. So let's check out part 2 of the interview with the Underworld Overlord development team. For the last part, I would like to ask each of you how you got into a game development studio, because I think for lots of the viewers it's like a dream to make games. It's a total dream and you got dream jobs, and lots of my viewers ask me, hey Sebastian, what can I do? I would like to do VR games, or I would like to get into that industry. Please ask those guys that you always talk with, how did they get where they are right now? So probably I would start with Chris Mayer,
Sure.
the lead engineer for Underworld Overlord. Tell our viewers a bit about your job. What exactly is it that you're doing in this whole development cycle? Please tell them what would you suggest them to do if they would also like to get into what you do, into your kind of position.
So my role at Other Side is obviously engineering. I'm the lead for our engineering team on UO. It's kind of a hybrid role where I'm doing a little bit of kind of assigning people tasks and working with them to make sure they get things done, but also, of course, writing a lot of code on my own as well. So I kind of got into games pretty young, I guess. I started making Warcraft 2 and StarCraft maps when I was probably 14 years old or something. I started making Morrowind mods a lot. And then I kind of fell off for a few years, and I'd always kind of circled around this idea of being a game developer, but I never really thought it was realistic. So I went to school for computer science and learned a lot of programming. And then after I graduated, I honestly sort of just got lucky and fell into a QA job at Turbine, working on Dungeons and Dragons Online. And I worked there for about 4 years and slowly started to accumulate skills. But really, what kickstarted me, getting into this job and becoming truly becoming a game developer, I think, was starting to mess around with Unity and realizing that actually it's pretty easy to make a game if you really, if you set your mind to it and put the time in, you can make something really amazing on your own or with a small team. And I honestly, I just fell in love with it. I think I did a game jam every month for about a year. So I ended up with about 12 games at the end of a year. And yeah, I think that experience is also incredibly important on a small team like ours, right? Where it's not enough to just be able to write code. You need to be flexible. You need to have a little bit of art. You need to know a little about audio. You need to be able to contribute to design discussions. So yeah, really, I mean, the best advice I can give is, stop thinking about it and just download Game Maker or download Unity and start making stuff, because it's easier than you think. The roadblocks are, it's all up here.
True, incredible. I also think that Unity is fascinating. I'm getting into it myself. I'm also an engineer actually. So before I did this, I'm an engineer as well. So I love to do Unity now in my free time, just because I think it's so amazing what you can do with it. Cool, perfect. And so your suggestion for anybody who would like to become the lead engineer of a VR game is to study Unity and go to game jams, and probably if you have to still decide what to study, you should go for computer science, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, today it's not 100% required that you be an amazing programmer, right? With Blueprint in Unreal or visual scripting in Game Maker or Playmaker for Unity, there's a lot of other options out there. But like for a game like UO, where you have to do a lot of optimization and things have to really work consistently and perfectly every time, having a really strong engineering background is absolutely a necessity.
Yeah.
But that also shouldn't scare people away, right? You can get a lot done with visual scripting and these other systems.
Yeah, of course. Cool, great. And then please tell us also about your first VR experience.
My first VR experience.
What was your first headset that you tried on?
The first headset that I tried on was an Oculus DK1, I think. Someone brought it into the office and I did. There's that demo where you could kind of walk around an Italian mansion, and
Tuscany, yeah.
then, yep, Tuscany, and then there was the roller coaster one, which made me extremely sick the first time I did it.
Me too.
Um, and the first thing that I actually built was Valve actually flew out to Boston and ran a game jam here that I participated in, and we made a little thing for. I guess it was a prototype Vive. It was one of the first headset I'd ever seen that actually had like positional head tracking. So we made a game where you play as a giraffe standing outside of a hotel, and you kind of like stuck your head into hotel rooms to like steal food out of them, which seemed like a great idea at the time. But actually having your neck extending like that constantly made you pretty sick. Kind of messed with your depth perception.
But what was your first thought when you put on that headset? Were you directly sure, okay, that's the future, I want to do something with that, or what was your thought?
Honestly, when I first put the Oculus on, I wasn't completely sold on it. It was seeing the full positional tracking with the Vive, and seeing your hands moving and be exactly mapped, and seeing your head move and exactly mapped to where your head is. Like that just brings you into the experience at a level that the early prototypes just didn't.
True. Okay. Thank you, Chris. So nice to talk to you. And now, Carl.
Thanks.
Carl, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for standing by so long.
Sure.
So Carl, you are the lead designer.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So tell us, what exactly are you doing? How did you get into that kind of dream job to be the lead designer in a VR production? And what would be your suggestions for people who want to become the lead designer?
Yeah, I mean, so the really interesting thing about game development in general is there's so many different ways to get in. There are so many different disciplines that are very different from one another, but you need them all in order to create, the experience of what makes up a good game. So in my case, I actually entered the industry through the art route. I was a digital animation major, so I was modeling, animating, that sort of thing. Also just doing lots of drawing and that sort of thing. So I was fully from the art side originally. I got my first job actually at my university after I graduated, working on a recreation of 19th century vaudeville theater. So we were using the NetImmerse engine at the time, which I think later was renamed Gamebryo. It was what was used for Morrowind. And we were, creating this sort of real-time theater experience. So this was an interdisciplinary approach that was from art, computer science, and the drama department. So from that, and even though it wasn't a game, it was working within a game environment. And it was through that experience that I, wanted to really be able to take that to the next level. I was like, game development is my real interest. I mean, and just besides the fact that I've been playing video games since I was 5 years old. I had a Sega Master System.
Me too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So that's from there I got a job at EA in Orlando. And I was an environment modeler at the time, and so I got to sort of be in the kind of the big game development environment, and I stayed there for several years. And from there, I actually left and started my own company. And this was at the time that the App Store opened. So I was sort of in the very early stages of doing app development for the iPhone. And so did that for a period of time. My brother is also involved in the industry as well, and he was kind of doing the same sorts of things that I did. So we sort of joined forces and worked on a couple more mobile games. And then, so I'd been doing that for a while, and then as VR started becoming more and more of a real thing, we just started getting more and more interested in that. And I kind of felt like mobile had run its course a little bit, and I just was really interested in what was happening in VR. And so we were working on some, just kind of some prototypes, some personal stuff, and then got the opportunity to work with the guys at Otherside. And it just when I heard about what the project was, and kind of the lineage and what, it just seemed like something really, really exciting to be working on. So. I absolutely wanted to be a part of that. So
great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So if I'm a designer now, and for example, I've just finished my studies, and I'm really interested to get into a game studio. What would you recommend a person to do? Simply apply, or are there some special things about your portfolio that you should look
Mhm.
at?
Yeah, obviously apply, but I mean, once you apply, what are you going to bring to them? And I think what you need to be able to do is show that convey you can convey a narrative, and you can convey a narrative through mechanics. It's not enough to tell a story, but it's that being able to show that you can tell a story or execute a series of objectives through a set of mechanics. And I think the best way to do that is to have little personal projects. I think, collaborating with other people, people that people online. I think there's a lot of people who are just getting started. I mean, online right now, it's very easy to collaborate. It's cheap and easy, and I think there are communities where you can meet up with people of other disciplines. So, I mean, if you want to be a designer, you want to get in touch with, some programmers, maybe audio people, and put together a project. And I think more than anything else, if you can sort of show what you've done and show that you've been, you've had the heart to do something, and
Passion.
and the passion that this is the project that I've done, and you take it to them, and then in your interview you explain sort of your philosophy behind it, what you were thinking in the design. And when I say narrative, not all games do have narrative. So let's say if it's just a hardcore strategy game, there's still a philosophy behind it, a philosophy behind the design, what you were trying to do and how you were trying to do it. And I think it's important to be able to vocalize that, to be able to really be able to explain what the thought process was, and then show how you put that thought process into action. And so I think more than anything, and the basis of design, that sort of thing, is, I mean, play lots of games, watch lots of movies, read lots of books, and sort of be able to appreciate what those things do well. When you see a really good movie or read a really good book, or that sort of thing, be able to understand why that affected you emotionally or otherwise, and then be able to sort of extract those concepts and then use them for your own thing. And so I think, what you want to do is really and it doesn't have to be a big project, but put together something that shows your philosophy, your talent in action, and then be able to talk about it. I think that's, if you have something like that, you're going to be really solid going into any interview.
Wow, this is great advice. Thank you so much for it.
Sure.
And then I would also like to know, what was your first experience in VR? What was your first headset, and how did it make you feel?
So, actually, my very first experience in VR was in the 90s. This early 90s, I was at Epcot Center, and there was in Florida, and there was an Aladdin VR exhibit, or it was a demonstration. And they picked people randomly from the crowd because there was only like 4 headsets or something, and I just happened to get picked. I couldn't have been luckier. And they put you on a little flying carpet with this, and in the 90s the headset was about 400 pounds, and they put it on your head, and it's like this. But it was actually flying around Agrabah, the little town in Aladdin, and it was amazing. I mean, I don't even know what the technology was at the time, but it looked like a cartoon, and I'm sure compared to what I've experienced now, it was probably fairly primitive, but at the time it was kind of like mind-blowing. Plus, I was a teen, so I was just like, whoa,
Wow.
This is so cool. My first modern experience with VR would be the DK2. My brother brought it to my house one day and was just like, here, you need to try this out. And so the first thing I did was the same Italian villa thing.
Yeah.
And, that was pretty cool. And then I actually played Team Fortress. And
Cool.
that was what kind of shocked me, because here I was, Team Fortress 2, here I was seeing all these characters that I'm so used to seeing and I know very well on the 2D screen, but seeing them sharing a physical space with these characters was a mind-blowing experience. To see the heavy and the gun, and just how massive this dude was in my space was a very it was enlightening sort of experience that, oh wow, so this isn't just video games different or better. This is a fully new kind of state of being in a certain way. So that to me was really amazing. I played the game for a little while and I threw up right afterwards, but it was all worth it. And
Yeah.
I'm much better now. I've trained myself.
Yeah.
I'm good.
For me, the
But
same.
yeah.
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 Cool. Yeah, for me also it was the DK2, and I played the Tuscany demo. But then very soon I learned that I can install Half-Life 2, one of my favorite games of all times.
Right.
And
Yes.
I played it through with the DK2, and I was just so blown away to be there in my favorite game, right? And I was scared shitless sometimes because it's
Yes.
just like, what? I'm there. And so it was
It's
mind
hard
blowing.
to it's hard to put into words the
Yeah,
very first time that you feel physically there.
exactly.
Something that you're
It's
used to interacting with like this, and now it's all around you.
unbelievable.
It is a very unique experience.
Exactly. And at that moment, I knew, okay, I have to do
This is
something
it.
with VR.
Yes. Right.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Carl. It was
Thank
incredible.
you.
And now
Thank you.
I would like to speak with Brandon Lorino, the executive producer. Tell us, how does one become an executive producer of a video game? Like, yeah, a dream job that you have there.
That's a very complicated topic. You know, me personally, I've been making games ever since I was a little kid, starting on the Apple IIc with Logo and then stuff in BASIC from there, and just literally been making games and movies my whole life. My first professional jobs, actually, when I was 14, I started working in movies and commercials, but that segued. By the end of my teens, I was working on a lot of Flash stuff, so a lot of big Flash cartoons and games in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was really sort of the first professional game projects that I had worked on. And then I basically took it from there. Then I was working on very early mobile stuff. So then I sort of found my sort of a narrative going on that I was always sort of on the bleeding edge of new media, and my career kind of rolled from there in that starting with, web games, and that as it emerged, and then mobile, and that as it emerged. And then, I moved on to like Konami and Sony. I was working on online games and Sega, and kind of expanded that, early MMO stuff, downloadable content, various multiplayer features, cross-platform connected features, free-to-play stuff, social. And then, I went to CCP, and, from there we were working on, we had connected Shooter on the console to EVE Online on the PC, and all kinds of, the first ever, full free-to-play game on the PlayStation platform. So this has basically been a narrative. So it's not, and then a lot of technologies that have contributed to or led up to the current state of VR. I mean, motion controllers, shipped stuff with the Move, for example, which is part of PlayStation VR, and did stuff with Kinect, which obviously that technology has got a lot of relevance, the technologies behind it as we move forward in terms of, tracking stuff in a room, and so on and so forth. So, VR was, it's just sort of a no-brainer for me that things evolved to this place, and that, I'm working in it, and that a lot of game companies and game creators find themselves at least thinking about it or talking about it at a bare minimum. But I think certainly on like a 10-year horizon, I think we're looking at something that's pretty powerful and transformative. But specifically how I became an executive producer, my background on all of these things, it's a pretty wild path. When I was starting on that movie stuff, I was working as like a script doctor, screenwriter, and I also was doing professional photography at the time. I did fashion photography and stuff like that, worked on cinematography. editing. So that's really where the tech part came in, even though I'd always been making my own games. It was kind of, I got involved in that stuff right at the precipice of the move from physical to digital. So, I was this young guy that got computers and stuff. So there I was, working with Flash and working with Final Cut Pro, and then got myself working at companies that had a relationship with those companies, and did, got a couple of Emmy nominations during that time for work with those tools, and helping them sort of evolve those tools, coming up with some stuff for that, using Flash for broadcast animation, and also working with a lot of early Flash games. And just by sort of figuring all that stuff out, I mean, those were some of my first like full-fledged producer credits, and that's kind of a good example of what a producer is. You kind of try to figure out complicated things and break it down, and help facilitate the help facilitate the execution of those things. And there's not necessarily a clear path all the time, and I find myself on sort of the extreme edge of that, which is the bleeding edge of technology. So that's really where you're just pioneering and sort of out in the wilderness, and really have to get scrappy, and like I was saying actually at the beginning of the interview, you can do X amount of planning in advance, but especially on like a creative endeavor, especially one where you have ambition to do, try to make something great and be innovative, and especially working in mobile VR is an innovative thing to do in and of itself at this time. That's the nature of it, and there's no guidebooks for that. You're figuring out a lot of stuff, and you're inventing things entirely new. So basically, my career as a producer advanced by figuring those things out across web games, and then mobile, and then MMOs, and then social, and cross-platform games, and free-to-play, and now VR.
Yeah. So basically, as the executive producer, you really have to understand all the different parts and how they get together, right? That's what you figure out. You understand what is needed to make a game, and then you kind of piece the puzzle together. Is it this what you're doing?
That's a good way to explain it, but you also have to listen a lot as well. So it's as much putting the puzzle pieces together, but also working with people to find the pieces, find the clues, and put together the puzzle, right?
Cool.
So I mean, it's a collaborative medium. It's a collaborative medium. I mean, now similar to the transition between film and digital, now thanks to things like Unity and Unreal, it's really democratized development, and now you can do much bigger things with a much smaller team, which is fantastic. And you do have sort of one-man teams, but when you look at a lot of AAA productions, at minimum there's some collaboration going on across some level of disciplines. Even if you're your own coder, artist, designer, you might work with someone to collaborate on the music. I mean, it's just the nature of games and film. These kind of large-scale productions, it's a collaborative thing, and so as much as I try to shepherd a project along, you also gotta work and just try to keep your eyes and ears open, be as nimble as possible, and just basically the bottom line is make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
hey, I'm really sorry to interrupt, but I need to get out of here.
Yeah,
sure. We're running a little bit late. But it's been great talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Talk to you later.
Have a good one.
Okay, Brandon, will you say what is the main quality that an executive producer should bring with him or her if they want to be successful in this industry?
That's another very tough question. I would say learn to be flexible. No one's going to come and tell you exactly what to do or how to do things again, especially on the frontiers of things. So be flexible and open, and try to learn, try to absorb as much as you can, and then apply that. yeah, just listen and try to then apply that to help path forward, right? Observe everything in the environment and just, yeah, flexibility and openness, just sort of being like a sponge. I mean, for instance, tackling VR right now, I mean, that's something that you have to be pretty thoughtful about. It's not something that you do just necessarily willy-nilly. You know, there's a lot of platforms and a lot of different standards, and everything's emerging. It's changing so rapidly. You have to really stay on top of that. So just looking at that as an executive producer, when we look at the Daydream and consider doing a project on that, or, you know, whatever our next project is, you have to really be thinking, you know, again, looking at the conditions of the environment and making the best call you can on what the path forward is. So to that, you have to be really flexible and open and observant. And as much as you're trying to lead and help push something forward, you also have to, you know, inspect and look and listen very deeply as well.
Got it. Perfect. That's really, really interesting. Thank you for that. So now I also, as the very last question, I want to ask you, Brandon, what was your first VR experience?
Well, so like Carl, I had some experiences in my youth. There was an arcade here in New York City that had a pretty sophisticated VR setup for the time, essentially an octagonal platform for you to be in that was tracking your movement to some degree, and a gun peripheral and a HMD. And that was an arcade experience that was like at the South Street Seaport, if I'm remembering correctly. And just, you know, I was in my single digit years at that point. So that already just completely blew my mind. You know, like I said, I was making games, you know, pretty much as soon as I could walk, talk, and read. So, you know, experiencing that was really mind blowing for me. And then, you know, of course, I love sci-fi and things like that. So, you know, these concepts, these notions were always sort of out there. So again, that's why this all seems very organic and natural to me. It's not like a huge shock, and there's been a lot of technologies building up to it for a long time. But among this, in this current generation of VR hardware, sort of, you know, with Oculus and Vive and Google and the major platforms right now, my first experience, I was working at CCP, and we got in one of the first Oculus dev kits, DK1, and I was working out of the Shanghai studio, but we had talked about it, and, you know, there was a small team that was inspired to work in their free time and take a bunch of EVE assets and make a dogfighting game, and that sounded really exciting. So then, just shortly before FanFest that year, which was 2013, you know, I went from Shanghai to Reykjavik for FanFest, and they had just sort of got together the demo, and they said, "Hey, we have this incredible, you know, it's ready. Come check it out." So I mean, pretty much the moment I landed, just dropped my stuff off at the hotel and ran over to the office, and they put the DK1 on my head, and there I was in the cockpit. At the time, we were calling it EVR, but now it's become E-Valkyrie, or, you know, shipped as E-Valkyrie. And I mean, I think I had an experience that I think a lot of people had with that demo, which was it was, you know, mind blowing to sit there and be in the cockpit. And then, you know, the team, even with just a couple of weeks of prototyping that, it was really sophisticated already, and it was a really great dogfighting experience. And just now being able to decouple the camera from your what you were doing with your hands, and being able to sort of multitask and track things that way, you know, was so much closer to what the actual experience of piloting a vehicle was. That, you know, that already, I mean, I was already sold, you know, back when I was a kid, but and you know, I also had tried out stuff like Virtual Boy and things like that throughout my life, but, you know, this just made it crystal clear that this wasn't just a gimmick, but this was a real enhancement on interactive experiences, and you know, just limitless what we could do with it. So that project went on to become Eve Valkyrie, and obviously I've continued working with VR, and it remains a very, very exciting frontier to be working.
It is super exciting, really exciting. Okay, fantastic. That wraps it up perfectly. I would like to thank all of you. I would like to thank Carl, Chris, and Brandon for the time here in the Daydream District interview, and for all the viewers who have not downloaded Underworld Overlord. Go and do that now, or probably first go and check my review on it. It's a great game and absolutely worth it for the money. So thanks a lot for your time.
Thank
you.
you
So
really
much.
appreciate the opportunity. Thanks.
You're welcome.
It's great speaking with you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect. So that's it for the second part of the interview with the Underworld Overlord development team. Again, thank you so much for taking your time, and to all the viewers who have not yet checked out Underworld Overlord, it is definitely worth it to play this game on Daydream VR. I really hope you enjoyed this interview. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and of course, if you haven't subscribed to Daydream District yet, do so now. Keep on daydreaming, and see you in the next video.